strong.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's The Beautiful Bag podcast. This week, I have a fantastic guest, Ryan, also known as Nude Dude Food, and we're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about ostomies. We're going to talk about his story and all that other fun stuff. So, Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And don't feel bad. People mess it up all the time. So that's good.
I'm like, nude food, dude. Naked food. Like, somebody was like, who you? I'm like, I don't know. He's naked and he cooks. I don't know.
That's right.
So we'll have to talk about where you guys came up with that name, because it's
sure.
a pretty cool name. So yeah, let's jump right in. Like, how you're in an ostomy, and why don't you start with your story? Like, what led to that? What led to you in an ostomy?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like many of us and your listeners, I was diagnosed at a young age with Crohn's disease. Actually, when I was about 14 or 15 years old. I'm 40 now. So I've had Crohn's in an ostomy more than half my life now. Early on, doctors really didn't know exactly how to treat me. They were very hesitant to do surgery 25 years ago or so. So, medicine. They pushed medicine, steroids, all these crazy harmful medications that I was on long term, but back then really didn't know any better. And unfortunately, technology wasn't what it is today, and research about Crohn's. So here I am going through my puberty, high school, formative years, and moon face and side effects from medication. So definitely was not an enjoyable experience in my late teens. And it wasn't until college that my quality of life was like zero. I was looking for, I had that, fear in college or anywhere, where am I going to find a toilet? All this anxiety on, I'm going to have an accident, because my Crohn's was that bad. I think I was trying to sit on a toilet like 20 times a day. Nothing was coming out. I was in so much pain. So my spring break of junior year wasn't to a beach or any fun exotic location. I went to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. They did a bunch of tests that I've done many times, colonoscopies, scopes, things like that. And what they found was my colon, which normally would be the size of a garden hose, was maybe like a shoelace. So nothing.
No wonder why you were in pain.
Nothing was passing through, and at that point, I think the good thing about that whole process was I really didn't have a choice whether to have an ostomy or not. As a 19-year-old adolescent young man, I wouldn't put that on anyone to have this life-changing surgery. But at the same time, like I said, I had no quality of life. I didn't want to keep living like that, even if I wasn't going to kill me by any means, but I was very unhappy, very sick, and it was controlling my life. So this decision really was easy for me to have an ostomy, because there really wasn't else going on in my life, and there wasn't any other solutions. At that point, I feel like I had tried everything. So finished my junior year of college, had my colon removed. It was a rough recovery, the staples and stitches through my midsection. They thought there was some infection, so they opened those all back up like a day after surgery. Eventually sent me home to heal kind of from the inside out. So, what was supposed to be like a nice, quick kind of zipper kind of recovery turned into, a long 3-month journey of recovery and kind of bed rest and whatnot. But the positive out of all of that, I got off almost all of the medications I was on during that time. Steroids, they kind of weaned me off finally, mainly because, they removed this huge infected, diseased intestine of mine. And so then, the big adjustment was more so, now how do I stay healthy? How do I stay hydrated? Obviously, the body image is an adjustment for a while, but at the end of the day, I felt a lot better outside of the physical pain of recovery. I'd never had this urgency to go to the bathroom anymore. I never had the stomach cramps or the blood in my stool and all those harmful, like not normal side effects, but very Crohn's typical side effects. All of that stuff went away. So the biggest hurdle for me then was just accepting this is my life now, and also adjusting to, my having half a digestive system. So the biggest things for me initially were, hydration and getting enough nutrients in my diet day to day, which took a long time. And even now, when I've had my ostomy over 20 years, it's still something it's a challenge, more so because, I'm the healthiest I've ever been now in the last, even 10 years. Once I got healthy and adjusted to the ostomy, I felt like it awoken someone in me, or it's always been a part of me, but now I felt like I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm in a good place, and I just had all this energy and was getting back into fitness, and it all kind of came together for me. Yeah, obviously, the scars and the bag are going to be a part of my life forever, but I, quickly accepted it and kind of formed this attitude that, if people aren't okay with that, though, it's not something that, I'm going to stress about. If they can't accept me for who I am, for this little part of me, and that's their problem, kind of mentality. So here I am now. Like I said, I've had an ostomy 21 years. I haven't been on medication in probably 6 or 7 years. And yeah, I'm doing the best I can, and, thriving, I guess, if you will, with an ostomy today.
I would say that. And wow, there was a lot in there.
I know, sorry. There's a lot, many other things. I could talk a long time about it, but yeah.
There probably is a ton of it. So, let's go back to a few things that you said, sure. Being 19, because, some of the listeners are young men. I have had a lot of interviews with women, and we talk about body image as women, but it's very difficult to talk, it's very rare to talk to a man about body image as a 19-year-old, going through everything that you went through. What were some of the struggles, and how did you overcome some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody else. I think for me personally, I just was like at rock bottom before I had the surgery. Couldn't get any worse. So for me, having, an ostomy or appliance on your body and scars and things like that, it took a little time to get used to, but my mentality and even my physical health, it improved so much after that surgery that I wasn't going to let anything stop me, anyone else stop me. If I can get through this, I can get through a bad day at work, I can get through traffic, whatever it was. And that was always my mentality. And I had great supports, not only through my GI doctors in Chicago, but also mental health counselors throughout the years, which actually kind of shaped my professional career. Before I was now a private chef, I went to grad school and got my master's in social work. So I did a lot of work I started my own support group for kids and families with Crohn's disease. So a lot of my personal background, but then also my professional education and job really just, was all centered around positive thinking and positive mental health, which, thankfully with my own mental health and health being better, it really just, helped me stay on the right track and whatnot.
Right. I would think that would, right? You have to help out. You're helping other people. So you helped yourself by helping other people.
For sure. Yeah. And then in my 20s, just going through doctors and checkups, they told me about Camp Oasis and the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. So for me, from 15 to 20, early 20s, I never had any supports. I never, outside of like seeing a counselor one-on-one, didn't have a community through an ostomy community, a Crohn's and Colitis community. Obviously, I had great support from friends and family, which is number one for sure, but also having that community, with like-minded people that have been through what you are going through, you can't replace that. So thankfully in my, like I said, mid-20s, got connected with Camp Oasis, which is a summer camp all over the country for kids and teens with Crohn's and colitis. And again, with my social work and counseling background, I started volunteering immediately. And a quick little story that really changed my outlook as well was, we're all at group swim at the lakefront, and I wasn't in charge of any kids at the time. So I'm just kind of open swim, go down to the beach, take my shirt off, ostomy and scars out, and just jump in the water, swimming, having fun. Little did I know, at the same time across the beach, one of the counselors was talking with one of the young campers, and I don't even think he didn't have an ostomy, but he had, some surgery scars, and was scared to get in the water because he didn't want to take his shirt off. But here I am again on the other side of the beach, unknowing this is happening. And a fellow counselor just happened to see me and pointed me out to this little boy. And they're like, look, Ryan, he's got an ostomy, he's got scars, but look, he's having fun. No one's judging. We're in a safe space. And the kid got in the water, and, he was, so I never even knew about that story. The counselor came to me after camp, and I'll never forget it. So it's something like that, something so small and something that I didn't even know about can have such an impact on someone's life. It motivated me. It still motivates me. And so here we are, that was probably 10, 12 years ago, but I still go volunteer at that camp every year. I do my best to be a Crohn's and colitis and ostomy advocate on my own social media, because I just realized the power of, just being yourself and not letting the disease define you, how powerful that can be, not only to yourself, but your audience or anyone watching.
Exactly, to other people. And especially now, because like you said, when you were going through all this earlier, there wasn't such thing as social media. There wasn't, there wasn't a place to go. Like, where do you go? What do? You found the camp and everything else. And I think now, with us being on social media and people using the hashtag ostomy awareness, there are tens of thousands of people in ostomies that are really just sharing, I'm living my life. Best thing, I'm doing the best thing that I can do. And we're living. We're gonna do what we do. So
totally.
So let's get into this, the health and the hydration and the food.
Okay.
Because your Instagrams, I'm hungry. Every time I go on your Instagram, sure. I'm like, all right, what are we cooking today?
Yeah.
So what brought you into wanting to be a chef?
Yeah. So obviously my background with chronic illness, food was always something that was important to me. Although oddly enough and sadly enough, way back when I was going through my diagnosis and treatment, I never met with a nutritionist. Diet really was never talked about, because, it was always meds. So I'm happy now to see, and as I talk with younger patients and people going through today, that diet and nutrition is so much talked about. Because again, like the correlation between the food you put in your body and whether you're an ostomate or you're a healthy human being, like health and food and mental health, it's all related. So for me, I was getting burned out doing my social work career. I did child abuse and neglect investigations in inner city Chicago for about 12 years. And then actually went inside the juvenile jail and did therapy with inmates there. My mental health was just horrible. I had horrible hours. My physical health was bad, but cooking was something I would always come home to as a stress relief and a creative outlet. I always grew up cooking, maybe basic things with my dad and my brother, but it was just a way to, be together as a family and have that community. So that's really where it all began. And then as I was getting burned out with my social work career, food really just was more of a passion. And, I knew I didn't want to go, the restaurant route, even though a lot of friends, oh, your food is so good, you should start a restaurant. But that was like the last thing we wanted to do, because again, I've already working these long hours. I wanted to have the freedom and the ability to cook what I wanted to cook for who I wanted to cook, and not be, the pressure to turn over all these tables and, do all these things that a restaurant would have to do. Also knowing that so many of them fail in the first place. So kind of just taking the power back of, working for someone else for so long. I was getting so burned out that I was willing to make a complete career change, but really it was such a passion for me that I was willing to take the leap. So my business partner and I, who was also my best friend from high school, so he's been with me all through my surgeries and Crohn's, life and whatnot. So he and I were always, cooking together. And we're like, what can we do in food and culinary to support, this healthy lifestyle that we're trying to lead, but also just be fun and educate people in the meantime. So we didn't come from culinary. We're completely self-taught. We just have a passion for living and for healthy eating and educating people. And, so we're like, we need a catchy name and social media and whatnot. And Obviously, nude dude food is what we settled on. We're not naked. We're not nude. The food is not raw either, but it's all healthy, hand-picked things from the farmer's market. Everything is seasonally sourced. So our menu changes with the season. So, there's stuff we buy from, big chain stores, but majority of our menu is things that we handpick from farmers markets that supports the local economy, minimizes our carbon footprint. And at the end of the day, it's just healthy foods that you don't need to do a lot of fancy things to make them good. So that was our platform to really drive the nude part of that food home. We took our shirts off, we put aprons on. A bunch of us have tattoos, and it was really just a way, if you were scrolling on social media, you could see some healthy looking men, in an attractive uniform, but also cooking really healthy food for a variety of clients. And within 6 months of starting that Instagram account and forming a business around it, also started the trademark process. It was getting enough traction that we knew we were onto something. So we both quit our jobs. We've been doing this full time, almost 5 years now. And it's taken us to about 20 different states. We're based out of Chicago, but travel all over. Obviously during COVID, we haven't traveled as much in other cities and states. But yeah, I love it. My physical health has never been better. My personal mental health and things like that. I have the freedom, to be my own boss now. It's a lot of stress, but it's a healthy stress, unlike what I was doing before, where I was just like completely burned out on my day jobs.
Yeah, I hear that because I'm all about eating healthy and doing the right things. I used to do fitness competitions, and then again, after having, I had cancer. So after having the cancer and putting all that together, it's like, all right, what am I putting in my body to make sure that I'm doing the right thing? And some of the stuff that we talk about, or that a lot of people talk about, is what about eating vegetables? Because a lot of people can't handle vegetables when they have, Crohn's colitis or an ostomy. Do you give anyone advice on what to do with that? Like, because you're doing a lot of local foods,
Yeah. And everyone's different. Obviously the disclaimer, everyone's body is different. What I can digest, some people can't, and vice versa. For me, the simplest things are, just, cooking them, a little bit. I avoid a lot of like raw vegetables or raw salads, but cooking things, obviously makes them easier to digest, adds a lot of flavor. So now, this time of year, there's an abundance of produce that, again, if you some good olive oil, salt and pepper, and saute it, or roast it in the oven, or use your air fryer, can really help kind of break down the harshness of those raw vegetables and then make them a lot easier to digest. So, using a lot of squash right now, zucchini, even fruit. I love fruit, but if I eat like one raw apple, that's like as much as I can take in a day sometimes. So even cooking things down makes them easier to digest, and you get all that flavor, but all the nutrients still, versus just eating something raw.
Yeah, exactly. And those are great tips. Those are great tips for people. Now, hydration. Because again, hydration is very difficult, and I don't think a lot of people understand. You don't have a colon, it's harder to hydrate.
Totally.
That's the colon's job, is to pull the water out. So what do you do from a hydration standpoint?
Man, I mean, and again, I've had this so long, and I'm still dealing with hydration because I'm super active. In the kitchen, we're standing on our feet 10, 12 hours a day, usually start the day with a workout also. So we're, and that's my own kind of personal drive, is that, unless I was working out shirtless, which I do a lot also, in the summer too, no one would know I have Crohn's or an ostomy. And so that's kind of my own internal motivation, is waking up and like, I got to move. I got to do something for my body, because I didn't go through all this pain and struggle for years and years and years just to sit around. Now that can be kind of my own worst enemy sometimes, because it's like, shit, maybe I need a day off to recover. But again, I'd rather have that be my mentality than not be motivated to work out or be, moving and things like that. Hydration though, I mean, I literally have 2 gallons of water in my fridge at a moment's notice anytime. I'm always carrying a water bottle around. There's these great little hydration packets, because I get tired of drinking plain water myself too, but they have the liquid IV, or they have these little packets that will really help you. Pedialyte, it's not only for like hangovers, it's for us too. So little things like that. And even, honestly, when I've had really bad knock on wood, it's been years, but when I was first, getting used to my ostomy, I would get so dehydrated, then the nausea would come. So then I had no appetite. I didn't want to eat, and I just was like super depleted. Thankfully, I had, some great nurses in my care team that I could just go and get an IV, or get some, fluids in me, and that would, bring me back immediately. Nowadays, thankfully, there's all these, again, they're probably labeled as more like hangover cure, like pop in, you pop in, get electrolytes, IVs, things like that. But those, short of going, outpatient hospital, those are like the best things. Obviously, as ostomates and Crohn's patients, if we can prevent that, and save some money and just do the hydration packs here and there. So, thankfully, I haven't had to get an IV in years. But yeah, it's just more so carrying around a water bottle, having, little flavor packs, if that's, that can excite, you to drink more water, things like that. And then also, like I said, with, eating an apple or a banana or something that will help slow down your digestion and keep, things in you longer. I usually start my day with, a banana, or even, like a cup of applesauce or something, because I know that's going to help slow down my digestion, slow down my stool output. And then as I drink more water throughout the day or after a workout, it's not going to just run right through me.
Those are great tips. I love them. Let's talk about working out, because
Sure.
I get a ton of questions of, aren't you afraid of a hernia? Because I'm off flipping around kettlebells, flipping heavy things and doing whatever. And everybody's like, aren't you afraid of a hernia? I go, I haven't even thought of it. I didn't even think about it. I don't think about it. I just do what I've always done.
Right.
So let's talk about how you protect yourself when you work out.
For sure. Well, now I protect myself. For years I did not, and just went, full bore in the gym, and I developed a hernia probably about 5 years ago now. It was about 10 centimeters on the opposite side of my ostomy. It still never stopped me, but it was something I knew I needed to take care of. So I finally had a surgery in 2017 to repair it. And ever since then, I've worn like ostomy support belts. I have a couple different brands that I'm very happy with, that I wear now every workout, even sometimes just throughout the day. If I'm lifting things in the kitchen or carrying around, heavy produce or bags of this, I'll wear it. But that's been the biggest kind of helper for me, is to help build my core. And I do a lot of weightlifting. I've been doing a lot more like HIIT workouts, that there's a lot more, maybe not lifting heavy weights, but there's a lot of core, using your full body. And no matter how much I work out, I'm missing part of my abdominal muscles due to surgery. So there's nothing I can do to strengthen my core to ever have like a six pack, or not ever need this ostomy support belt. But it's made a huge difference. Even just wearing it, I feel more confident. I'm not fearful of, another hernia. I still have my limits. Obviously, I'm not ever lifting super, super heavy, because I'm not trying to hurt myself, and I'm getting older and things like that. But even just something like that, and doing some, low intensity core workouts, we're not doing these like weighted crunches or anything crazy, but just even, some planks or little things that you're engaging your core and your full body really can help strengthen, if you have an ostomy or if you have Crohn's, like it really can help, help strengthen that area, which typically for us is weak due to all the surgeries and scar tissue. So that's my number one kind of piece of advice. And I get asked a lot what brand I use and things like that. There's a couple that I personally recommend. I'm sure there's many more belts out there that I'm not even aware of, but highly, highly recommend wearing some kind of ostomy support belt.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. And I know people are going to ask, which ones do you recommend, and where do I find them? So which two do you like the best?
Well, I've had the Stealth belt, which I'm pretty sure is made somewhere here in the United States. My personal favorite lately has been, it's a guy out of the UK, Mr. Crohn's and Colitis. He's like, what I don't aspire. I mean, he's a huge inspirational Crohn's guy over in the UK. He's got a huge following on Instagram and TikTok. But yeah, he designed his own belt that actually is a little wider than the Stealth belt that I originally had, because it also supports kind of the ostomy side. The Stealth belt I had has like a little cutout where I can kind of weave the bag through. Whereas the current bag I'm using, the Mr. Chron's Colitis, there's no opening. So it compresses everything in my midsection. Because again, I can, even though I've had an ostomy on my opposite side, I can always, you're always at risk of getting a hernia on your ostomy side too, which I'm definitely trying to prevent. So
exactly. I mean, and we can get hernias from coughing.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you can anyone, you can get a hernia anyhow, but having that extra protection is great. Yeah, sure. That is great. So, you know what, Ryan, I've loved having you on here, with us this week. If you were to leave the audience or the listeners with one thing, what would that be?
Man, one thing, I think, put me on the spot. Really, I think for me, the biggest thing is just not only having positive supports, whether it's an ostomy community, a Crohn's community, your own, family and friends. I think that's the number one thing that's going to help you succeed in life and thrive with an ostomy. Because for me, a lot of it I did on my own, but obviously there's always been people on my corner supporting me, going through what I've been through, being there through, hardships and whatnot. So that's the biggest thing, is that you're not alone. There's a huge community out there of people just like you. So if you need help, don't feel bad about reaching out to myself or you or anyone in that community, because you aren't alone, and life goes on with an ostomy. It's not the end all be all. For me, it's such a small part of my life now that, it's never defined me. And I think that's the thing that people and personally have to get to in their own journey, is accept this is, the life that we have, but there's ways you can thrive and live with it, and, don't let it stop you.
That's great advice. That is great advice. So if the listeners were to find you, where's the best place for them to go? Yeah,
and please reach out. Please find me. Super vocal on social media or wherever. Instagram is at my name, which is, I think this is right, Van Voorhis, and I'm sure you'll link it when you post stuff. And then the business account is at Nude Dude Food, just like it sounds. Either of those, we're super great advocates. The Nude Dude Food is obviously a little more food oriented on private dinners and things we're doing, some recipes here and there. And then my personal Instagram is just me and living life, and, there's some tips on ostomy, things like that. But again, reach out, follow, DM me with any questions. I'm an open book.
Sounds wonderful. Well, Ryan, thank you again so much for being with us this week.
For sure. Anytime.
These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers.